Brooklyn Independent Television.
This is one of the disadvantages of film. You always have to load up. 36 shots to a roll. But I'd rather do it this way. This way I can keep my eye on the action.
This is our all-time favorite.
And don't look at the little monitor on my camera.
The song begins like this.
A lot of times when you look at the camera, you miss some action.
Shines over the coal mines of Meeke. The smokestack seems so high.
And I've been practicing this craft of social documentary and photojournalism for the last 40 years. I work in Brooklyn, I sleep in Queens, and I spend my time in Manhattan. So it's kind of like a three-borough commute. I became a self-taught photographer, but I think the seed was planted by the time I was in junior high school, because that was the first time that I read that Chinese, completed the railroad. So in every social studies history book, there's that famous photograph of the two locomotives facing each other, and all these people in front of the locomotives. So I figured, well, if the Chinese built the railroad, let me go see how many Chinese there were. Looked at the history book, still not a single Chinese. I said, so if you read about something and you don't see it, then where are they? I realized that I was not good in chemistry, not good in math. I had a better understanding of social studies. Basically, I wound up working in a social service organization after I got out of college. I used photography in the Lower East Side to document the deplorable housing conditions that were pretty rampant. So I took before and after photographs of the conditions. So with these photographs, I would go to the next building or the next tenant group, and then I could show them, what had taken place. Just do your thing. I come to this event on an annual basis, and I see a lot of people that I recognize that I've probably photographed in the past. Photojournalism, you don't script things, okay? It's not like infotainment. When people were using film, there's a term called photographic proof, okay? That meant that you really couldn't change the photograph, once it was recorded on film. At the end of 1974, there was a case of alleged police brutality. These two plainclothes officers came into a bar in Chinatown called the Jade Chalet. They got into a discussion, and the discussion led into an argument. So I heard it on the radio when I got up in the morning. It was around 7 a.m. in the morning. I picked up the papers. I read it in the New York Times and the Daily News, but there were no photographs. I said, well, I know where the restaurant bar is, so I'm going to go down there and see what I can do. And while I was taking photographs, Chief of Detectives showed up and asked me for my police ID, press pass. And at that time, I didn't have a press pass. So I basically lied through my teeth. The detective says, if I see you again and you don't have your press ID, I'm going to bust you. The very following year, April, and then also in May, I photographed a police brutality demonstration. So while they were marching, I took a photograph of a police officer that swung and hit a demonstrator on the head. So the front page photograph shows this guy bleeding profusely from the forehead. He's holding his forehead, and there are two police officers on his side, and they're coming towards the camera just before the fellow was struck with a billy club. I ran down the sidelines like a wide receiver would and did a button hook and then came back into the center. So I got this wide angle photograph. I was really fortunate because back then they didn't have autofocus cameras. But you set the camera at f-stop f8 and at 10 feet, so everything from 5 feet to infinity is in focus.
You got a biopic going on.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. People here tell me that they really like one photograph or another in my exhibit. And then I would ask them, well, why'd you happen to like that? He says, well, I just like the look on the Chinese fireman. He looked like he had a 1,000-yard stare, and he was really committed to his job as a New York City fireman. And as it turns out, there's only like 2 or 3 Chinese-American firemen in all of New York City. So I think when you don't see something that's really common, visually on an intellectual or emotional level, and then you see something and you say, wow, it gives hope to young kids that, they can say to themselves, hey, listen, I can grow up and be a fireman.
What do you look like?
What I wanted to do is to give the community a voice through photograph, through photography. And because it's often said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? But you can interpret a photograph almost any way you want, okay? And the more immediate that the photograph has an impact on you, it says something.
Become a fan on Facebook, like Brooklyn Independent Television.